Will you join me in prayer? God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts on these words that you share with us this week be acceptable to you, and may we hear your message to us. Amen. So we have these two readings, a short one from James, which is some really great information on praying. He covers a whole lot of bases in his prayer, in his teachings in that reading. He also talks in that book, he's talking to the people of the diaspora, which are any people who are not living in the place they started. They're people who have lost their connection. Maybe they're isolated, maybe they're alone. And honestly, that could be probably mostly all of us. And he reminds them in this way about praying about how important interdependence is for us. He's telling them, but it also means for us as well. He's talking about that interdependence that we have in our communities, which we work really hard at building up here at this church, whether it's people inside our walls, with our caregivers, with our various prayer groups, with our Bible studies and those sorts of things, but we also work to do it out in the community with our food bank that we have here, with cooking for Zion Lutheran, whether it's helping our various refugee families that we're helping to have some family where they are now, and also to find this place to be home, because our world is so different than the world they came from, and they got to learn everything, like all the little things you never think about. How to drive in this country, how to get your bills online and all of those kinds of things. But we can always be working on interdependence, right? We can work on our interdependence of the wider community, or other ways that you want to build up community so that we know each other. Because in these days and times, we are so isolated and separate. Versus the way it was back when I was growing up, and my parents always had people over during the week for coffee after dinner or dessert, or people were in clubs and groups and card groups and that sort of thing. And we've lost that with all the TV we can watch, with the internet, with the online kinds of things we do. And I know that there's a real hunger out there in our community and everywhere for people to actually have connections with other people. And I believe that church can be one of those, what do they call it? The fourth space, the third space? What is that? So there's your home and your work. And there's all this talk now, and I can't even remember does somebody know what I'm talking about? That there's this, it is the third place. Okay, the third place where people come together. Like, we have to build that up again. So it's going to be so fun to watch how our church leans into that in the future and as things go forward. I was talking to a younger pastor in a college town farther into the state, and I asked him, what do you see happening? And he said, well, we haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking like game night, game night, but see, not our board games. Board games are good. I have kids that play board games. But also he was talking about online gaming together or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. But coming together to do it. And he talked about knitting groups and that sort of thing, where it would be both community and the church, and that people are seeking to come together. So I don't know. We'll see what y'all come up with as life moves forward. But the other part of these readings today, especially the one where Jesus says, "Give us this day our daily bread," I always thought about it as a kid, and it didn't really change. I always just thought like, oh yeah, give us our food today, you know, which was like kind of a toss-off because I always had food every day, until I worked in hospice. And I had to get out of my comfort zone and do more praying with people in hard times. And one of the things I learned from my mom was the Lord's Prayer and to use it all the time. So I would always ask people, and I still do this, some of you have had me ask this, what would you like to pray about today? And it's generally not what you think somebody's going to say. You know, if somebody's dying, you think they're going to say, oh, give me more time. That's virtually never what they pray for. And what I came to understand and then we will always end together in the Lord's Prayer. There's something so comforting in praying the Lord's Prayer with other people. So if you're ever stuck, just start praying the Lord's Prayer. People will hop on with you. Most of the time. I was at a funeral recently where nobody did, and I was like, wow, times are changing. But I really started to hear these words, give us this day our daily bread, in a whole new way when I was working in hospice. Because literally those people were very focused on that day. And I started to take that to heart, and I forget about it, but this is Sunday, this is a great reminder again about how this is the day we have, and what do we need today? What is the very given, daily, now obviously for some people daily bread is not a given, we know that, and as Kathy said, we need to do something about it. We do some stuff about it here at this church, and we need to pray about it. But also, if that's not the exact thing you're praying for, it's praying to God to remind us of what's important today. What is it that I truly need today, not what I think I need today? What do I need that you see I need, God? Which gets to the heart of this petition for me, this whole idea of petition, is it's so hard for us. Bless the kids that say they still ask for help, they probably do. Some of you did raise your hands out there. I did not raise my hand. It is not easy to ask for help. I see it all the time. I see it in practically every one of you. People are very willing to help other people, but when you need something that is very near and dear, something very hard that you think you should do yourself, it's very hard to ask for help, because why would they do it if I'm not doing it? Anybody get an amen on that one? Yeah. And so I think it can be very hard for us to talk to God about what it is we need, but it's a great place to start. It's easier because God's not a person sitting right there, right? So being able to turn our hearts to that is an important part of our prayer life. We live in a very self-sufficient society. We live in the bootstraps Midwest. Do it yourself. My oldest daughter, one of the first things she said, do it self. We like to be independent. We like to make things happen. And it is just very hard to acknowledge need. And yet, The good news is that God is waiting to hear our needs personally. And so are your friends here. Because we like to be helpers and we like to make things happen, we're very comfortable with that. But if we're all the ones doing that and there isn't somebody saying, hey, I need a little help with this or that, well, who are we going to be helping if we're all just doing it ourselves? So I think it really, taking together this part of James where we lean into this communal support, where we lean into this interdependence as a society, as a community, as Davenport or the Quad Cities, or the people who are in their 20s and 30s, or the people who are in their 40s and 50s, finding ways to build that interconnection will also help us have people that we can turn to when we need to, and it will give us the opportunities also to help people, which I don't think is very hard for us. But the big thing is to continue to be in prayer. Being in prayer, being in conversation with God can sometimes, we've heard so much thoughts and prayers for years. We're kind of like a little jaded about this, I feel like. It's like we need more than thoughts and prayers, but we can't do without prayer. For ourselves, for our vagus nerve system, for our anxiety, for our hope, to keep our own hope alive. Turning to prayer and taking time quietly. Maybe you add a meditation app to it. Maybe you add a Bible app to it and a little worship thing you can follow. Something that continually turns you back towards God, that is the source of the light and the love, that is the source that will lead us forward. As we follow what Jesus said and did, when we take in his death and resurrection and that resurrection power into our lives, we can thrive. We can grow. Our hope can remain strong. And our very beings can be held up in a very, very heavy time. Amen.